take away those chillin', and take away them greens, because mama's little baby loves pork. Pork and beans in a can, pork and beans in a pan, pork and beans. Man, we love pork and beans. Pork and beans
In a can,
pork and beans
in a pan,
pork and beans.
man,
We love pork and beans.
in a can,
Handy, handy, handy.
in a pan,
Candy, candy, candy. In a can, in a pan, in a pan, in a can. Man, oh man, they're just dandy.
pork and beans,
In a can,
pork and beans,
in a pan.
pork and beans.
Man, we love pork and beans.
Hey everybody, I'm Pork Cunningham. This is my new little series I'm launching called Conversations with Pork Cunningham. And I don't know why I'm laughing about it, but anyway, I just thought, we would do something where we could just focus on one particular story, like go for a half hour, 45 minutes, or, well, 10 minutes if we run out of stuff to say. But get specific to a certain subject. And thanks everybody for showing up, if anybody did show up. And I just want to tell you right now that I'm going to be focusing on the interview, but I will take a few minutes at the end of it to address any questions that you might have. So we'll take a few minutes at the end of it. So hey, Kevin, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Doing pretty well.
Yeah. Well, you look good. You were sick there for a while.
Yeah, still on the uphill swing. But it, getting better every day. And it's a
Awesome.
gorgeous day outside, so it's killing me to be inside.
That inspires you to get better when it's really nice outside. You really want to
It
get out,
does.
right?
It definitely does.
Yeah. So let's delve right into this. So what we're going to talk about today is one aspect of shape-shifting. And
Okay.
specifically about Sasquatch shape-shifting into people. Now, I've seen them shapeshift into owls, ravens, stuff of that nature. One of the most spectacular ones was George the Owl. That was actually keeping Barb Shoop company when she was up here for her camp out. And what happened is that George the Owl was watching her for quite a while, like 2 or 3 hours, right in the middle of the afternoon. And that's unusual in itself. But then another Kevin Carney was there, and he was a guy who was just starting to be opened up to the woo and the magic and stuff. I mean, you're levitating. He had already had some. He had already had some. He had already had sort of an introduction to it, but this really opened his mind because he saw George the Owl on the ground, okay, and he witnessed this. He saw it like himself, and as the owl flew off the ground, right there, right directly where he flew, was RE's signature A with the Welcome X. So that just completely opened his, like, wow. I mean, that was for him, and it completely opened his mind to a whole new world of possibilities. So so we know that they shapeshift into animals, and owls, ravens, stuff of that nature. That's a fact, in my mind. But we want to get into specifically with you today about how they shapeshift into people. And I did want to say one thing that you and I discuss, and I've talked about it with other people as well, is that generally when you see them as people, there's something off about them, they don't act quite right. They're not wearing the right clothes, um, something like that. And the one time that I was pretty darn sure that they were people is Randy Brisson and I saw these two ladies while we were hiking in my area, and we said hi to them, and one of them completely wouldn't say anything to us. She seemed like really like weird, and her glasses were like sideways and broken, and just really weird behavior, right? And later in the day, we saw them like going down a certain path, 200 or 300 yards away from us, and then we looked behind us, and they were right there. And actually, Randy had seen two Sasquatch prior to that, Sasquatch people. So that was interesting. And then we saw them up on the hill watching us, just really weird kind of stuff, that really suspicious. And actually, even a couple girls that we talked to said, did you see those two ladies in there? Like they were weird or something. Like it was just bizarre. And so,
Yeah.
That was very compelling for me. But you, my friend, took it up even a notch. I mean, you'll have to, no doubt, and
Right.
we'll get into that. But get into, you were going to talk about something leading up to it.
Well, most definitely. Okay. I know that this topic sounds really crazy to the people who have never experienced some of Sasquatch's special abilities. And I would have to say, had I not experienced any of this, I would have been in that same camp. I would have been like, you guys are nuts. That is not possible at all. What have you guys been smoking? Kind of a thing. So with that caveat in place, understand I don't draw this conclusion lightly. My background is very much engineering, rational, logical thought. That was my whole career. To jump to Sasquatch and Woo was about a 2 or 3 year process that they took me through. And the reality is they kept introducing me to new things for the first 2 years, but they really went over they really pushed me across the line with one particular instance. And for anybody who's listened to my story at all, they know that I've got a hike to a lake that's very close to me. It's about 1.5 miles to 1.75 miles in and back, and I use it actually as an exercise hike. Well, it just so happens that's also where my clan hangs out a lot, and I'm not sure they actually live there, but they hang out there a lot. And so that's where the vast majority of my really in-depth interactions take place. And this is another of those that was there. So I was on one of my hikes, and I was on the first trip. Well, actually, I want to step back a little bit. I had been away from my hike for pretty close to 2 months because I had been sick and I'd been busy around the house. And I just hadn't been able to get back to hiking. And this was in August. Well, my first day back to hiking, I got kind of they'd been interacting with me with aroma, the females in particular, the women. And it's always a floral aroma. And in this particular case, it was always the same floral aroma in areas where there are no flowers. Until you've experienced it, you're just gonna have to take my word for it. And it's one of the most intoxicating aromas you could possibly imagine. It may be a male-female thing. I don't know. I really haven't delved into it terribly much. But so the strength of the aroma, the strength of the smell, usually indicated how strong the interaction was, or how strong the interaction was. And there was always an energy component. So I'm hiking this one day, as my first day coming back, and I come down into the area where they're at, and I just get literally mugged with this aroma, and it's like, where have you been? We're so happy to see you. And it was a very, well, it felt really good. Let's put it that way. And the rest of that trip wasn't particularly eventful. I was in and out, and they let me know they were there, but it wasn't nearly to the degree that that first initial greeting was. Well, then I came home. I let my body rest for a day, and then I went back for another time, because like I said, I used it to get in shape, but I do need a day of recovery. So I'm on my way down into the area, and then I get this sense of it's almost like a oh, you're here smell, right? It was very weak. It was just sort of a, yeah, we see you're here, but we're not interested today. And so I thought to myself, well, and I said this kind of out loud. I said, okay, so yesterday or 2 days ago, you mugged me with this, and today this is what I get, a greeting like this. And then I kept hiking, not thinking anything else was going to happen. Well, I continued through the part of the trail where I know they are, and I start heading up to where there's a dead end. And before I get, what happens is that dead end, it goes uphill, curves around a corner, and it's all blind. I can't see until I hit a certain point, and then I'm looking down an old abandoned road. Well, as I'm coming around this corner from below, and I'm climbing up, all of a sudden the words popped into my head: prepare to have your life changed forever.
Now, excuse me. Let me interrupt you.
Mm-hmm.
Was it mind speak? Was it actual? You heard the words, or was it just thought placement?
No, I heard the words. The words were there.
Was it your voice? Was it your voice, or was it their voice?
So I've had mind speak on, well, a lot of occasions, but really defined mind speak on maybe 3 occasions, where it's like, I fully recognize these are not my words, but they're my word. They're words that are in my head, because they don't match the tone of my emotion. They don't match the my voice. They don't use the wording that I would use. And every time it's happened to me in that way, it's been to get my attention.
So it is your voice, but it's just not your thoughts, kind of thing.
Right. Because, I mean, the reality is, when it's in your head, I don't know that you can differentiate. I think we're so used to having our own thoughts and seeing our own words in our head that when somebody else places it in there, if they're skilled at all, which these beings are very skilled, you're not going to really notice that it's not yours, unless they want you to. And in this case, and that's my experience. Your experience might be different, right? In this case, it was very clear, hey, we're going to change your life right now.
Wow.
Okay, fine. And so, but the thing is, I kept walking up this hill, and I'm mulling over this words, and I'm thinking to myself, did I just imagine that? Did I say that in my own head? And I kept, so I was evaluating, am I hearing, am I just kind of going off the deep end, or did this really just happen? And fortunately, I'd had mind speak before this, so I had once that I really recognized. So I was able to put it in a box that I'd already had at least some experience with.
What was the first one?
Okay, so help me to remember where I'm at on this part.
I will. Sorry.
So the first time I ever experienced mind speak, where it was so literally clear that it was mind speak, after the Sasquatch started to try and get my attention at my house, and I didn't know what was going on, right? Like I said, I'm an engineer, rational, logical. Woo doesn't happen, right? Woo doesn't exist, kind of thing in my world. Yes, I believe that Sasquatch probably, and I say probably, was a reality, but what exactly Sasquatch was, I didn't know. And frankly, I still really don't know, honestly. In fact, I've got more questions now than when I began, but that's a different story. So I started to look online for experiences or people who had been having experiences like mine, like gifting out of the blue. Like I received rats that were laid out. I mean, we're talking healthy rats that weren't nibbled on, they weren't crumpled, they were laid out beautifully in a line in a trail, or on the trail that I had to take around my house. I couldn't avoid them. I was going to find them. And there was a glyph that was put behind my truck that I'd never experienced glyphs before, and it was the first one as far as I knew. I didn't take a picture, and Brian scolded me for that afterwards. There were gifts.
You know why, but go ahead.
There were gifts that I received in the back of my truck that could never, my family didn't put in there. And this is while my truck was in my garage, and I had accidentally left the door open. The garage door, not the truck door. The truck door was shut. And I'd lost all the apples on my apple tree from 6 feet up had been stolen. Not stolen. I hate to use the word stolen. They had been appropriated by my Sasquatch, apparently. And they've done it since then too. So I'm very well aware that it is them. But at the time I was freaking out in a good way, but I had no place to put what was this experience. And so I started looking online, and I discovered some YouTube channels that helped me to go out, and I started looking. It was Project Go and See, and it was, I believe, Christopher Noel, Mark Abel, Colorado Bigfoot, and a woman named Snow White Bigfoot. Those were the three first that I watched, and I discovered a lot about their structures. Nothing really about glyphs at this point. That happened later. And then I got onto Facebook, and you have to understand, for me to go on Facebook was a big step. I personally hate Facebook. I think that it's the most intrusive, worst thing that could have happened to society. However, turns out that's where I found community that understood or could help me make sense of what was happening. And so,
until you met me, that is.
Right. And so I started to share my experiences pretty freely. And in that sharing, I wasn't really careful about hiding where my interaction area was, or my hike. And so anybody who put really any effort into it at all could have easily determined, oh, I see that's where it is, and I want to go have my own interactions with Sasquatch.
Margaret?
Yeah, that was Margaret.
Margaret, hang on. We're doing an interview.
And so like I said, I overshared. Well, one day I was in my area, and I had been sharing with this one particular guy who also lives in Washington State. And so I went into my area, and there was a guy, and it was really obvious to me that he was looking for Sasquatch. And I felt like I had violated, just how open I had been hit me like a ton of bricks at that time. And I was angry. I was upset. Like,
I know that feeling. I know. Yeah.
To an extreme. And I felt like I had betrayed my clan, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to stay in the woods right then, because I don't know that I would have been super nice to that person. So I turned around, and I started hiking back out. And by the time I got to the trail, back to the trailhead, as I was getting to the top, and these were literal words, and they were soothing, they were calming. I mean, and trust me, my spirit was not soothing and calm, or soothed and calmed. I was very upset. I was very angry. It was, let them have their experience with us.
I remember that. Yeah.
Right. And now that's all that was said from their standpoint. Mm-hmm. But it stopped me. And when I say stop me, I mean, I literally stopped. And how unhealthy my relationship and how possessive I'd become toward my Sasquatch clan hit me like a ton of bricks, and that I needed to change. And that was all me. These were all realizations I had almost immediately. And I had to apologize to my clan for how possessive I was. Okay. So anyway, that was my first experience with mind speak.
Yeah. Now, getting back to your other thing, you wanted to remind me, you were saying the second mind speak was be prepared for your life to change.
We're going to change your life forever.
Right. So what happened from that point?
So right after those words were spoken in my head, I continued walking, and I'm coming around this corner. And just as I get to a place where I could see further along than just, the bend, 10 feet ahead of me, I heard a clatter, I heard a commotion, and I saw something that my rational mind couldn't wrap its head around, and it turned it into something it wasn't. I wasn't looking at a Sasquatch as far as I was concerned. I was looking at a deer. But if I so I walk around the corner and I surprised a deer in the middle of the trail, which is actually kind of odd because I'm not exactly a super quiet hiker. You scuff rocks, you hear the crunch, crunch, crunch on the gravelish kind of stuff. And this was in May of 2019, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember. Anyhow, so it was still moist out, and so it was still wet enough. Anyway, so I'm coming up around this corner, and oh my gosh, it's enormous. Whatever it is enormous, and it's probably 20 feet in front of me. And my brain is going back and forth and having a battle with itself, saying, the rational side saying, you startled a deer. The other, the actual observation side of me was saying, no, the color is wrong. The butt's too full. It looks like a primate butt, not a deer butt.
Oh, wow.
As it's running away. And I also had to overcome is it coming my way, right? So I had that whole fight or flight threat assessment thing going on. So literally within a split second before this thing disappeared, I've got a ton of stuff going on in my head, trying to figure out what is it I'm seeing? Is it a threat? And can I trust are my observations matching my conclusions? And they weren't, and they still aren't. I'm very certain at this point that it was a Sasquatch that was showing itself masquerading as a deer, but only partially, because I created in my own head that there was hoof clatter, but the reality is, as I remember the sound in my ears, there was no hoof clatter. It was soft feet. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Okay. So as soon as it was out of sight, having gone the other direction, I'm thinking I've got that sense of relief and the adrenaline rush that I'm dealing with afterwards. And then right next to the trail, I hear this little bleat, I can't even make the sound. And I turned to look, and there was a little fawn standing next to the trail. And so what my brain did was said to myself, you see, that was a deer because here's its baby. And so forget quit arguing with yourself. Rational side wins. All right. I still don't believe that it was a deer for a variety of reasons. But that was my first experience with having to really question my eyes, question my perceptions. And I realized it was the beginning of realizing just how easily humans are fooled with our senses, because we rely on our eyes, which have a very, very limited spectrum in which it can see. And we rely on our ears, which also has a very limited range. It's better than our eyes, actually, strangely enough. And if you're not used to absorbing energy or feeling energy, you're kind of, when you're out in the woods like that and you've got all this different input, you're kind of at a disadvantage. but that's a, again, that's a different situation or issue. So that gave me a lot to think about, and I literally thought about it for a month, easy, trying to come to some sort of conclusion that was, well, satisfactory to my brain. And it, I actually eventually just chucked it into the I will never know category, and it just sits back there. And okay, I just accept it is what it is. And I actually am pretty happy it happened that way, because I'm glad I don't know. It added to the mystery, and it made me look further.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now, over the course of the rest of the summer, so from May until August, I was a pretty regular traveler on that trail, because I was still trying to get myself ready to go for a backpacking trip with my son down in the Sierra Nevada mountains. And he's 20 years old and in phenomenal shape and can hike circles around me and carry 80 pounds. And, I carry 50 pounds and I'm dead after a mile. So I had to change that a little bit. All through that summer, I continued to have the interaction with the olfactory, the aroma, the smell, and it was not always in the same place. It was mostly, though, I knew where she hung out most of the time. But there were places where she also hung out that were different, but that was more rare. I knew for almost a fact that if I go by this place right here, this for sure, I'm going to get greeted. Well, let's fast forward to August. In August, it was right before I was going to leave for this backpacking trip, and so I was in pretty decent shape. So I had hiked all the way in to the lake, and usually I did this twice. I hiked all the way to the lake, and there was really almost no interaction, which, sometimes that happened, and it didn't disappoint me too much. It's just like, maybe they're busy, got other things that are going on. Well, on my way out from the lake, I hike up and then down to where the creek is that I have to cross to get back across the trail. And before I get to that creek, all of a sudden, a lone dog, no collar, maybe 20-pound dog max, really unkempt, comes trotting out of the woods. And I'm looking at that, and I do just normal. You do a threat assessment. Is this dog going to be aggressive? Is this dog not? And most of the time, dogs, and I mean the vast majority of the time, dogs and I have I must have the same vibration or frequency or whatever for them, because they always come to me and get love or whatever. This dog comes across the creek, and as I'm looking at him and I'm assessing the threat, out from the woods 20 feet behind him walks a little kid. Now, the hair's never been cut, as far as I'm concerned. It's a boy. Hair's never been cut. He is almost walking like a robot, right? He's not smooth flowing like a person. Well, all of a sudden, my senses were on high alert, because you do not see a lone 3-year-old in the woods that's unaccompanied, right? If I were to walk with my kid, that kid I would be right next to them, because there are predators. It just happens. And so I'm just about to ask the little boy a question, and when he looks me in the eye, and he is terrified. He is absolutely terrified. And my heart melts. And I'm about to say, "Where's your mom?" And he's about 20 feet from the edge of the woods. I can't see into the woods from where I'm at along the trail. Out of the woods saunters his mom, and who I have come to believe was Talitha, the Sasquatch woman that I was interacting with so much. Anyway, she comes walking out of the woods, and cool as a cucumber, man. She was dressed very plainly, long hair, kind of light brown or dark blonde. I don't know how you'd want to say it. And she was really only had on a t-shirt and a pair of jeans and a pair of tennis shoes. There was no belt. There was no accessories like most women have. And she walks out and she gives me the warmest smile that I could possibly even imagine. And I'm confused at this point because now I have to talk about energy, because the energy of what I was seeing was not matching the energy of what I was feeling. So I was visually seeing a woman with a child who was still 20 feet away from her, and a dog who was still 20 feet away from the child, and they're all walking single file. But there was a recognition between me and this woman. Like, I know you, but I don't know you, right? I've never met you. I've never seen you before in my life. So she keeps walking, and we're going to pass. And I make a little pleasant comment about it's a beautiful day, right? Blah, blah, blah. And she giggles and continues walking. Well, then out from the woods, and again, about 20 feet back from her, a man comes walking out, a young man. And he is well built. I mean, he was a very muscular guy. He was probably about 6'2". He was wearing a flat billed cap, and he was also dressed very plainly. He wouldn't look at me for anything. Nothing, right? And so I disengaged my thought or my attention from the gal and kind of put it over to the guy, because now things seem weird. Like weirder than normal. Like now I don't know what this is all about, because his energy is not her energy, and his energy's well, it's different. Let's just put it that way. I'm going to say different because I couldn't read it, and my senses were overwhelmed. I was confused at this point, and I couldn't figure it out, because as she walked by, there was kind of a faint aroma that Talitha had, right? It was faint. It wasn't like so I thought, well, maybe Talitha's over in the woods, and she just sort of gave me a sign, whatever. Anyway, so I walk past him, and he, again, doesn't give me the time of day. And I keep walking, and I get to the top of the trail. I drink my water, and I turn around, and about 45 minutes has elapsed. I turn around, and I come back down the trail, and I didn't see anybody else. And I went back across the creek, up around to the lake. And before I get to the lake, and the old abandoned road actually forms the trail to the lake. So I intersect that abandoned road, and I keep going down. Well, I get right up to the top of that road, and up from the bottom of the road comes, and in the same exact order, you got the dog, who looks exactly the same, almost 20 feet, the child, still looking like he's freaked out, then the mom, and then the guy. Well, as I'm walking down, and I'm evaluating this, and what I'm seeing is not matching the energy, right? It's not matching what I know to be something weird is still going on. And she looks at me, and I had a Dr. Pepper shirt on, and she goes, "Oh, Dr. Pepper." And I said, "Yeah, I really like Dr. Pepper." And I said, "I hope you guys had a nice time down at the lake." And she said, "Yes, we did." And I disengaged from her because, again, I'm not sure what his intent is, and I don't know what the whole thing is. So I just really didn't. I still don't know how I would have done it differently. As I'm walking past him, he actually intrigued me almost more than she did, because I'm looking at him. I'm looking at his eyes. And as I'm passing, I don't turn my head. I look at him out of the corner of my eyes. And as we pass, he growled at me. It's like, and it was not a human growl. I'm sorry. It was not a human growl.
You imitated?
No. No. It was a growl. It was a deep, it was a deep kind of,
like that?
Right. But what was most interesting to me and what actually really confused me was as I passed the woman, the the smell that Talitha had, the aroma that Talitha leaves for me or left for me was so strong that I almost passed out kind of. I mean, it was like it was overwhelming, intoxicating, and it was her. I mean, that was, and that confused me to the point where I'm thinking, what is that, a perfume that you can buy like somewhere? And um, as so again, I'm confused. I don't have answers. I'm beyond what I can rationally, logically. There's no conclusions I can come to that are rational and logical at this point. Anyway, so I go down to the lake. I stop and I drink some water to rehydrate. And they've gone past me and are on their way. Well, they've got a kid, they've got a dog, and the woman and the man aren't moving real fast. And when I hike pretty fast. So I turn around, I'm coming back out, and I'm fully expecting to pass them because there's only one way in and one way out. I never saw them again, ever. And I booked it back home. And actually, immediately when I got home, I contacted you because I wanted to get your take on this, because this was one of the weirdest experiences I've had in the woods ever. And I've had actually another one the next time I went in, which was 2 days later, where I saw another young woman who I believe was not a young woman. Well, not a human young woman who appeared as one. So
Why do you think she wasn't a young woman, a regular young woman?
it was the same kind of scenario. Okay. Where I met her on the trail. She just literally appeared on the trail. It wasn't like she came walking in. It's all of a sudden she was there with her 2 dogs. And what I found really interesting is one of the things I thought first when I saw the dog was that the person who owned the dog was really, and I thought this really strongly in my head, was really irresponsible, because you're supposed to have your dog on a leash if there are people around. And so when people are around and I've got my dog down there, she's on the leash. Otherwise, I let her loose. Well, these people didn't even have a leash. This dog didn't even have a collar. Well, 2 days later, it was another young woman. She had 2 dogs, and they were both on a leash or on leashes, and they both had fancy collars on. But again, the energy was completely wrong for the situation. And again, she and the dogs literally just appeared. And this is when I was hiking without a dog with me. This was after Grace had died. And we had an interaction where we were talking, and it again, the energy did not match what my eyes were visually seeing. But there was no aroma that I could detect.
Do you think that because we know that they can read your thoughts, do you think that because you were thinking, well, she wasn't behaving appropriately because she didn't have her dog on a leash and kind of thing, that the next time you saw somebody, they did have exactly what your expectations were?
Yes, I totally think that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an amazing story. And we've discussed the aroma before, because I've had that floral aroma myself.
Right, you and Ross.
It's like a very pleasant floral aroma, actually.
It is. It's like I said, it's intoxicating. For me, it almost gets me high.
Yeah. So, and it's funny, because many times when and I know it doesn't just happen when you're talking to me, but quite often when we're discussing them online or whatever, you do get that floral aroma comes in, right?
And mostly in the form of a confirmation. If we're talking about something where there's a question involved, or they really are interested in the topic, I will most definitely get and not just her floral aroma, but I've gotten both masculine and feminine types of aromas. As we're paying attention, we're paying attention to this kind of a
Right.
message.
Right. And it's funny because I don't get well, I have had the floral aroma a number of times, but generally when we're having that interaction between you and I online and we're talking and you get that floral aroma, I get the energy. Like I say, oh, she's
Right.
there. Sometimes I'll tell you she's there even before you tell me, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Right.
Hi.
Right.
My oldest daughter came in and washed her car here, and she's on her way out. So I had to.
Well, we don't have much further to go anyway. Like I said, I wanted to keep it to about 45 minutes. So we got about another few minutes, and then we'll see if anyone's actually watching and maybe take some
Right.
questions or whatever. But yeah, I mean, to me, I love that story because, like I said, I know they shapeshift. I mean, I've had so many experiences with ravens, owls, different animals. It's just not even in question for me. And
Right.
and the human one is kind of like that's really stretching it, and yet I'm pretty sure of what I've experienced. But talking to you, that kind of, I mean, it was good for you and for me, that we were talking about the aroma because I think I mentioned it. Well, did I mention it before you ever experienced it?
I don't think. Well, if you did, I don't remember.
Okay.
I just know that if you mentioned it and I hadn't experienced it, I probably dismissed it. So,
Yeah.
and not because I was being mean. I just didn't have a place to put it.
Yeah.
And now have
But the point is that like we were discussing, I was saying that they can shapeshift into people or whatever, and your experience took it up another whole notch. Like, I mean, I don't think there's any question as to what you experienced with the aroma and the behavior and that. I mean, I think that you just pretty well proved it to yourself and just kind of made me come around a little bit. Like, okay, well, there is no doubt. I mean, when you told me that, I just knew immediately there was no question about it. There's just no question about it.
well,
So
so I just want to be clear that that's not the only time that they have shown me shapeshifting. It's been it's all been so progressive. Where are you going?
I want to just shut the window because there's a lawnmower going.
Okay. It's been such a progressive experience that there are certain things they do that completely shake up your paradigm, right? They remove whatever reality anchors you thought were there, and then they start to remove some of the smaller reality anchors and just show you what's truly possible. And I have to say, the last time I was out hiking, I had a really interesting, I don't know whether it was a revelation from them or whether it was an idea that popped into my head. And that since we are all frequency creatures, frequency beings, Margaret's home, by the way, so we might cut this off soon. Since we're all frequency beings,
Yeah.
all we have to do, hello, all we have to do, or in order to appear as what we're not, we have to modulate the intensity of our energy to match the energy of that type of a creature and the frequency. Right. So if you're a Sasquatch, and that means you're a big energy creature, right? And you have a certain frequency, and you want to appear as a rabbit, that's not out of the question. What you have to do is mold your energy, pare it back, and make it match the frequency that a human would see as a rabbit. That's what occurred to me while I was hiking. Whether it's true, accurate, or not, I don't know. I just thought I'd share it. Maybe someone's got a better take on it. I'm totally open to it.
Well, what I really like about this is that when we talk to each other, and not just you and I, when we talk to people who are connected with Sasquatch or whatever, so often they give us the answer by somebody else's experience because it's, oh yeah,
Right.
it's it's amazing how it works. Like, you know, like your experience with the floral aroma was like absolutely a no-brainer, and so that it gave more credence to my experiences, right?
Right.
And you know, and that's really the magic of how they work with people and stuff. So that's absolutely amazing. Yeah. So did you want to hang in there for a couple of minutes and see if we have any questions? I don't even know if any are watching this, but
Right.
if they are, would you like to see if there's any questions for a few minutes? Okay, well that's an amazing story, Kevin, and like I said, it really enhanced or my journey too, because it told me without a question, yes, my suspicion that they can shapeshift into people. I knew they could do it with animals, but my suspicion that they could shapeshift into people was a fact after that, because there's just no question about it.
Right.
Yeah.
And they have props. They own props.
Yeah.
Right. That they picked up of human things that have either been thrown away or they've appropriated. I don't know. And so they may be able to appear physically as us, but then they also put on the physical accoutrements like glasses, like the ones you saw,
Right.
And or the guy's baseball hat.
Yeah. And the other thing, like I said, like that added credence to my experience, and what other people have said too, is like we stated, they just don't look right. There's something, you know, they're not, you know, they, like you said, they look a little weird.
Right. And I have to tell you though that all three of the people, they were attractive people. They weren't hideous or ugly. They were all very attractive. Like they were it wasn't like some encountering Quasimodo on the trail, right? It was not threatening in any way, except actually when he growled at me, I kind of laughed and I laughed because I didn't know what else to do.
You know that there is such a thing as the greeting growl. Maybe he
Really?
was actually just greeting you in his own way, you know?
Well, a couple of days before this, I was huffed at as I was leaving their area, and it was an invisible one. Um, he was it was the last. He was next to the last big old growth tree before I walk up the trail. Finish walking up the trail, and there's some brush around it, but it's actually kind of cleared out around the tree. And as I'm walking up and leaving their area, I get this huff, and along with the huff came some energy that was not good. This person was not happy with me. So I'm wondering if it was him and he was, you know, being a lookout there.
Hey, you're messing with my woman. Back off, Romeo.
Exactly. That's kind of what I did. I mean, he had every reason to do it. So.
Well, I know, knowing you, I'd growl at you too if you're around my woman. You're a. But you know, like, how many times have you had walk by somebody and they growled at you? Probably not too often.
Never.
All right, let's leave it at that. I think we've covered it pretty good. I mean, we could go on a little more, but it's yeah, I think we got our point across that they can shapeshift into pretty well anything that they want to. Absolutely. So just hang in there for a second, and I'm going to go and see if anyone's asked any questions or something.
Okay.
So I'm going to go on mute so that I don't get that big feedback and the, you know, like, I'm getting smarter, Kevin. Like normally I go on there without mute, and then I get the other recording playing as well. So we're going to do it right. I'm going to impress Mr. Beans.
Oh, good.
I'm going to impress him. That's my objective in life, is to do something to impress the world's handsomest man, Frank Oliver Beans. So just bear with me.
If you're talking to me, you're muted.
I blew it.
Yeah,
I blew it.
Frank
Almost perfect. Anyway, we had a few people watching, and somebody was saying they hadn't experienced the human thing yet, but got the impression that they had experience in shape shifting into different animals. But anyway, yeah, that was I love that account, and
that
and
account,
I like and I love
go ahead. I'm sorry.
and like I said, I love the way that, you know, like with you and I, you know, it happens a lot, and just in general is when, you know, somebody speaks of something related to them, and then it clicks with them, and then it gives them some verification for one of their experiences. And you know, in this case, you know, like you absolutely proved in my mind that yes, Sasquatch can shapeshift into humans, and the reason is because of the floral perfume.
Exactly. It was identical. I mean, she has a signature, and that is it.
Yeah. So once again, these amazing forest beings, you know, they never fail to impress, and they never fail to give us just a beautiful love. And oh, I'm getting the energy again. Oh, I was almost disappointed. That's the first time on the show. That would have been. They like us. They like us.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah. Okay, Kev.
All right.
Thanks a lot. You are the first guest, the inaugural guest on Conversations with Port Cunningham, and you didn't suck.
Sweet. I can't wait to hear more other. I can't wait to hear other people go through this.
I've already got some other people. I think I'm going to try to get Tom Cantrell and my wife on to talk about their healing experience. That might be next. Yeah. And I might even get Frank Oliver Beans on to talk about something. You know,
yeah, because he's got some really interesting experiences too.
Maybe like a bean. Maybe he makes his own pork and beans, some kind of recipe or something. Hey, Kev, thanks for stopping by and making the first show kind of a success.
Well, thanks for having me, Brian. I really appreciate it.
A lot of love to you, brother, and of course I'll make a deluxe YouTube version of this and embarrass you with my music and
nice
stuff.
Nice. Just choose something good
and piss you right off.
Right.
See you, buddy.
All right, bye.
Yeah, thanks everybody for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'm going to do this, you know, more often or whatever. So this will be a regular thing. Thank you, Kevin. Thanks to everybody for watching, and we'll see you next time.
All right, take care, Brian.
Yeah.
I cannot what the world may say.